Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series Rescue the Rockies. And the 2027 season is going pretty well so far for the Rockies. We've got a 45-34 record, first place in the National League West, although the division has definitely been tightening in the last month or so. I still don't completely understand how this team is doing so well. We made a few changes to the roster this past offseason, all of which have worked out pretty well for us. But I still don't think on paper this is a great team. And to be fair, a 570 winning percentage is a very good team, but not a great team. It's going to be a busy episode, although we're probably only going to move forward about a week and a half in game time. But we're closing in on the midway point of the season, so when we get there over the next few days, we'll take a look at what Mr. Monfort thinks as far as our record on the field and our progress with his goals. We'll do a deep dive into our roster and how it's performed over this first half of the season, try to identify some areas that we might want to focus on in the trade market over the remainder of this month. Check in on a few of the top prospects in our organization, see how they're doing in their quest to become major leaguers, and then we'll sim forward up through the start of the draft. We'll be picking 24th overall, so we'll find out who's going to be on the board for us at number 24, and then we'll turn things over to anyone in the worldwide scouting department who wants to share their thoughts on what we should do in the draft. As we look at our schedule over the next week and a half, we took 2 out of our first 3 against Milwaukee, so trying to win the series here today at home. Then we've got 3 at home against the Giants, 3 at home against the Cubs, an off day to travel to Texas, and then we'll have 4 games at Texas up through the, or 3 games at Texas up through the 11th, at which point the draft will take place. So as I said, going to be a lot of things that we cover, but in terms of fictional baseball, only going to be about 10 games between now and when this episode ends. And with the draft only a week and a half away, we're still trying to aggressively scout some of the better players in the draft pool. You can see we're only average and high scouting accuracy on most of them. Hopefully we can get a little better over this next week and a half or so, but we have been pretty aggressively scouting. We've got a scout who is excellent with amateurs, and as we've talked about, we've also got the maximum scouting budget this year, given that we didn't invest very heavily in the free agent market this offseason. So would think that we are pretty well positioned to know as much as possible about these players, but there definitely does appear to be a little bit more of a fog of war in terms of the knowledge level that you can get with draftees and even IAFA players to an extent in OOTP 26, which is fine with me and probably good overall, although it's certainly different from past versions where I've typically been able to get up to very high scouting accuracy on the entire pool. And unfortunately, we lost the last game of the series to the Brewers, so that means that we end up with a 2-2 split, 45-35 record through 80 games, and Mr. Monfort is giving us our mid-season review, wants us to make the playoffs this year, so he says that a 563 winning percentage is about what he asked of us. Happy with the improvement in attendance. Seems cautiously optimistic about Francisco Santos, our IAFA signing from 2026, as the best prospect in our organization. I haven't made much progress to turning around Colorado's farm system into a top 6 system, and we don't have any homegrown talent on the roster, to be fair. It's been less than 2 years since we did our first draft, so I wouldn't expect there to be a lot of homegrown talent on the roster quite yet, but Mr. Monfort has other ideas. and fan engagement is lacking. Talked about this, and some of you have commented on this to my whining in responses to the last few episodes. I felt like they had made some improvements to the fan interest metric this year. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be working the way I would expect at this point. We were a surprising 86-win playoff team last season, and this year we've basically been in first place in the NL West for the entire season, and yet our fan interest has retracted by 6 points from 63 to 57 over the course of this season. So that's been a little bit disappointing, but it is what it is at this point. Hopefully, if we continue winning, this steady downward trend in our attendance will ultimately improve here in the summer months if we keep being successful on the field. And as we sit here on July 2nd, the 45-35 record is 3 worse than expectations. We should have a .600 winning percentage in theory. We are second in the National League in runs scored and near the top in almost every offensive category. And we are fourth in the National League in runs allowed and in the top handful of teams in just about every pitching statistical category as well. So the season going very well for the Rockies so far. The pitching staff, a couple of our new additions doing really well. Honestly, all of the new additions to the team this offseason, 4 pitchers that we picked up through the free agent market or trades, and 1 position player that we picked up in a trade are all having good to excellent seasons for us. So that's been probably luck as much as anything to have them all performing really well, but certainly has helped us have the good season that we are at this point. Jesus Luzardo, who we signed to that 6-year free agent contract, has been everything we could have hoped as a pitcher. 11-2 record with a 3.67 ERA, struck out 117 batters in 95 2/3 innings pitched. The negative is that he has given up 15 home runs in those 95 2/3 innings pitched. Definitely a little more susceptible to the home run ball perhaps than he was when we signed him. But still overall, a 117 ERA plus, 90 FIP minus, and a 1.7 WAR at the midway point of the season. Luzardo doing a good solid job for us. And the same can be said for Dustin May, who we picked up in a trade with the Dodgers. 7-3 record with a 3.59 ERA, 120 ERA plus, the FIP minus of 98, a little bit better than average, and he's put up a 1.3 WAR for us in the early to mid stages of this season. Bobby Miller, who we made as a Rule 5 draft pick from that rich Dodgers franchise a year and a half ago. Not as effective this year as he was a year ago. A 2-5 record, a record of close ERA of close to 5. That said, his FIP minus is still in positive territory, and he's put up a 1.5 WAR for us, despite some of the traditional numbers not being all that great. Lefty Aaron Ashby having another solid season for us, 5-4 with a 2.71 ERA and a 2.2 WAR, actually on his way to the best season he's had with us since we picked him up in a trade almost 2 years ago. And last but not least, Ryan Feltner, who on paper does not look like he should be particularly effective, especially in Colorado, having another good year for us. A 5-3 record with a 3.18 earned run average. He's put up a 1 WAR for us as our number 5 starter. He's a guy who's making almost $7 million this year, set to make about $11 million in arbitration next year, although he has definitely outpitched his ratings for us over the course of this playthrough. Around $11 million next year, especially with him being 31 years old next year, may be the breaking point for my willingness to keep paying him and bringing him back. But he's certainly having another respectable season for us as a starter this year. Ryan Walker, who we picked up in a trade with the Giants, has become our closer. 21 saves with a 3.38 ERA. Put up a 1.2 WAR for us, 128 ERA plus, 63 FIP minus. So the fan favorite has been very good. Jaden Hill has been the biggest problem in the pen. He was our closer a year ago, and he's having a very tough time adapting to a different role. An ERA of 7.59 in just 21 and a third innings. He's walked 11 batters, 5.43 Sierra, and he's been a below replacement level pitcher. Do like his ground ball tendencies, do like that he should be able to keep the ball in the yard reasonably well, and he was very effective for us a year ago, so we'll likely continue to give him time to work through his issues. The two Gregorys who are setup men for us, the lefty Gregory Soto, second year with Colorado, 3.31 ERA over 32 and 2/3 innings pitched. He's been slightly above a replacement level pitcher for us. The 19 walks he's allowed has not been great. And the righty Gregory Santos, a 3.80 ERA over 47 and a third innings pitched. We picked him up just about a year ago. Those metrics are well below replacement level. He's allowed 11 home runs in 47 and a third innings while walking 21. Given his extreme ground ball tendencies and given that our scout at least thinks he's incredibly good at keeping the ball in the ballpark, hoping that his performance normalizes a bit in terms of the amount of home runs he's allowing over the second half of the year. Victor Vodnik was the last guy who made our staff this year. He had been up in the majors 2 years ago, spent all of last year in AAA, but he's put up a 3.03 ERA over 29 and 2/3 innings as a middle reliever, so doing a respectable job for us there. Elvis Peguero, one of the first guys who's a ground baller that we picked up in a trade almost 2 years ago, having a respectable year, a 4 ERA over 36 innings pitched, slightly above replacement level as a middle reliever for us. Drew Summers, the fourth pitcher that we added this offseason in a trade with the Giants. Really nice start for the lefty, 1.80 earned run average over 30 innings pitched. He's only allowed 14 hits on the season, so his whip is below 1. No wins, no losses, no saves. He's definitely been a middle reliever and lefty specialist for us. Ultimately has been just above replacement level despite some of those traditional metrics being really strong. And then Braden Nett, who still may have a future in our rotation, particularly if we end up moving on from guys like Feltner, working as a long reliever for us this year, and he's been pretty effective, a 3.04 ERA with 53 strikeouts over 50 and a third innings pitched, and he's been 0.6 wins above replacement for us in that action that he's had as the most used arm out of our bullpen. So overall, the pitching staff going reasonably well. Always would love to add another top-end starter or top-end reliever, but given that we are fourth in the league in runs allowed, playing half of our games in Colorado, and with the exception of Jaden Hill, everyone on the team is at least respectable in terms of some of their numbers. Can't complain too much about how the pitching staff has done thus far in 2027. And as we talked about in our previous episode, we had a number of pretty significant injuries to our position players over the first half of the season, but at this point, only Brenton Doyle, our four-time defending Gold Glove winner in center field, is still out. Unfortunately, it's an unknown return from post-concussion syndrome that he's been dealing with for about a month and a half now. He was having a real nice year, 112 WRC plus and a 1.5 WAR. Hopefully he'll be able to come back from that injury at 100% and remain very effective in the field and on the base paths, and hopefully still a useful major league hitter for us. Other than that, though, the team is largely healthy at this point. Hunter Goodman's been our everyday DH for most of this playthrough, although we had started off with him as our catcher for a little bit back in 2025 before we brought Drew Romo back up to the big club. Goodman, to be fair, has been disappointing overall. Was a below-average offensive player a year ago, and he's a slightly below-average offensive player this year. 239 average with 13 dingers in 293 at-bats. On-base percentage just barely over 300, so he's been a slightly above replacement level player overall. But as a guy making $4.4 million for his bat, who's set to make about $8 million in arbitration next year, the second half of the season is going to be real important to Mr. Goodman if he's going to retain that designated hitter spot for us going forward. Drew Romo, our starting catcher, signed him to a extension this past offseason, and he's more than lived up to it. After a really good year a season ago, he's put up a 2.6 WAR through the midway point of 2027, which is a higher number than he put up in 117 games a year ago. Batting .281 for us. He's been a league average-ish offensive player, so very similar in terms of his OPS plus and WRC plus to Mr. Goodman. The issue is that, or the difference is that Romo is a outstanding defensive catcher who's also a great influence in the clubhouse with that captain personality, and he's making less money than Goodman this year as well. So continue to think that Romo, with that blocking, framing, and arm, is an asset for our pitching staff. Some of you have commented the framing in particular can be very helpful in Colorado, where we want to keep runners off the bases if at all possible. And Romo, with the extension that he signed for us, 8 years, $65 million, is going to be our starting catcher for the foreseeable future as long as he continues to remain outstanding defensively and respectable or better offensively. Vinny Pasquantino in a similar situation to Hunter Goodman, making $5.2 million this year, set to make $8.5 million next year, and he's basically only been a league average offensive player, hitting .257, but only 5 home runs in 206 at-bats for Vinny. Definitely need more offense from our DH and first baseman than we've gotten from Goodman and Pasquantino thus far. Bo Bichette spent some time on the IL earlier, but is healthy now. Unfortunately, since he got back from his injury, he's been pretty bad offensively. You look at his batting splits, and he hit over 300 in April, was hitting .262 in May before he got hurt. Since he came back in June, he's hit just $184. So batting average for the season down to .245, 87 WRC plus, still a win above replacement level. He's a good, solid defensive infielder, good in the clubhouse as well, another captain personality, but not quite living up to the relatively large contract we gave him a year and a half ago. Doyle Amador, batting just .222 this year. He's been slightly below average offensively. 5 homers and 26 ribbies in 189 at-bats. He's getting time all over the infield, playing primarily at first base and third base, although he's also played at second and short for us at times when we've had injury issues. Certainly would hope that he can be more productive going forward. He's been our starting first baseman against left-handed pitchers rather than Vinny Pasquantino, and hopefully he can continue to draw a lot of walks there while at least getting the batting average up to a more respectable level than the .222 he's currently hitting at. Cole Carrig, another youngster who's getting an opportunity to play most days for us. .265 batting average, 5 homers and 37 ribbies in 245 at-bats. Is 21 out of 22 stealing bases, so he's been very productive on the base paths for us. Still, unfortunately, overall a below-average offensive player with an 88 WRC+. but a 1.5 WAR on the season, helped by his defensive versatility and good speed. Ezequiel Tovar is having a potential MVP season for us. He was a guy who the Rockies had signed to an extension before we took over, and there was some discussion from viewers who have played with Tovar in previous sims who said that he just never really developed that well, that thought maybe we should try to trade him, but I'm glad at this point that we've kept him on board. His contract is going to be getting more expensive going forward. $11 million next year, $14 the year after, $16 the year after that. But if he continues playing the way that he's played for us, he's definitely worth a very good defensive shortstop who was a Gold Glove winner in 2024, was an all-star for us last year. And as I noted, he's having an absolute monster season this year. .295 batting average with 20 doubles and 19 homers through his first 295 at-bats of the year. Been successful stealing 9 out of 10 times. Has an OPS of over 900, a 136 WRC plus, and a 3.7 WAR on the season, as he's doing even better for us than he did last year. Jared Cerna, we've been trying to train him to play left field at the major league level recently, which is not always the best decision, but with some of the injuries we've had to the outfield, he does have better potential range out there than some of the guys who would be playing. But he is also another young utility infielder type guy, similar to Carrig and Amador, who's been able to play about 2/3 of the games this year for us. And unlike those two guys, he has been dynamic offensively, hitting .324 for us with 12 doubles, 2 triples, and 3 home runs. Also has stolen 5 bases, OPS over 800. So Cerna has put up a 128 WRC plus and a 1.4 WAR for us. The former Rule 5 draft pick who we kept on the roster all last year. Definitely done a nice job for the team. On the other hand, Miguel Vargas is in a very similar spot to Mr. Goodman and Mr. Pasquantino as far as we're concerned. He's a corner outfield first base DH type that just hasn't worked out for us since we picked him up in a trade with the White Sox almost 2 years ago. Hitting just .217 this year, which sadly is the best batting average that he's ever put up in his 3 seasons in Colorado, but only 2 home runs in 83 at-bats. 70 WRC plus on the season, and he's been below replacement level. Another guy who's set to make more money next year in arbitration, about $5.5 million. Would be extremely surprised if Goodman, Pasquantino, and Vargas are all back with us next year. It's not inconceivable that depending on what there is in the trade market, we look to upgrade from 1 or 2 of them now. And it's not inconceivable that by this time next year, none of those 3 are with us. Albert Almora Jr. has been up with us because of the injuries we had in the outfield. Basically, a good personality, a good defensive outfielder, but not really a major league hitter at this point. He's hit .208 for us in 48 at-bats, just a 33 WRC plus. As soon as Mr. Doyle is healthy and well, if there's no other injuries, Almora will likely be headed back to AAA. Chandler Simpson was the one significant addition we made to our 26-man roster as far as position players this past offseason. Picked him up when we decided not to exercise the option on Sandy Alcantara that was relatively expensive, and we were able to get him in return for Texas, and Texas in exchange got a pitcher that they were able to afford better than we were. Simpson is doing everything we could have hoped and more, batting .316 for us. Not a ton of extra base hits, didn't really expect it given his limited gap power. Does have 10 doubles and 4 triples in 228 at-bats. As anticipated, he's been brilliant on the base paths, leading the National League in steals with 37 stolen bases and 42 attempts. He's been an above average offensive player overall with a 106 WRC plus, and he's put up a 1.6 WAR for us. He should be our primary left fielder, but he has been playing some more frequent center field for us in recent weeks with the injury to Mr. Doyle. The hope is that we'll be able to get Simpson back into left field, where he is an above average defensive outfielder once Doyle is back, which should help the overall defense of this team. Jordan Beck, right fielder, another guy whose tenure with us has been in a disappointing trend. He was very good in part of a season in 2025. He was solid for us last year, but this year hitting just .212 with 5 homers and 151 at-bats, only a 77 WRC plus, and he's been a replacement level player. Set to make $3.4 million next year, so he's less expensive than some of the other disappointing corner infielder, corner outfielder DH types. But certainly want more production from him going forward. The guy who's had a really nice year for us among the corner outfield, corner infield types is Austin Wells, who also happens to serve as our primary backup catcher. But he's having a big year for us finally, after he hit just a .187 and was incredibly disappointing last year. Seems like he may have needed a season to figure out how to live and play successfully in Colorado, but he's definitely doing that this year. His batting average up by just over 100 points to 288, and he's got 15 home runs and 43 ribbies in just 215 at-bats. OPS over 900, 149 WRC plus, and he's put up a 2.1 WAR for us. Playing primarily as a right fielder for us, but he also has seen time in left field this year, and as I noted, has been our primary backup catcher, starting 17 games there when Romo needs a rest, given that although Wells is not a great defensive catcher, he's above average, and he's certainly better defensively than Mr. Goodman. So Wells is a guy who will be set to be making about $6 million next year in arbitration, unlike a lot of the other corner outfield types we've talked about, given that Wells has been so productive this year, and he's also a left-handed bat, which we are lacking a bit, particularly if we move on from Pasquantino, and he can also catch for us. My hunch is that Wells is going to be remaining with us over the near to medium term. So as we think about this team broadly, my hope is that some of the infielders, Bichette, Amador, Carrig, start performing better over the second half of the year. Don't really know that I'm going to be looking to make any dramatic changes as far as the middle infield types or the third base types. But between Goodman, Pasquantino, Vargas, and Beck, we definitely have some DH, first base, corner outfield types that are underperforming. That's also an area where there's typically some bats that are available as you get closer to the trade deadline. So certainly could be looking to upgrade some of those positions in the coming weeks as we get closer to the trade deadline. And some good news, although we lost our second game of the month to San Francisco to drop to 0-2 in July. Brenton Doyle, back from that unknown recovery time, it looks like it was pretty quick, so that's good to see. As I noted, or I think I noted, he had been out since mid-May, and we originally thought he was going to be out for about 6 weeks. So it ended up being about as expected when all was said and done. We're probably going to let him play a game or two over the rest of this weekend in the minor leagues to hopefully shake off a little rust, make sure that particularly coming back from that concussion, he's not having any issues seeing the ball. But I don't think we're going to keep him down there for more than a day or two. We talked about how poor Almora had been offensively, and how we've been suffering a little bit with Simpson as our everyday center fielder against right-handed pitching, and certainly could use Doyle's defense in the outfield as soon as possible. And we won the final 2 games of the series against the Giants to take that series 2 out of 3. Hopefully, we can have a similar performance against the Cubs before we head out on the road and start really preparing in earnest for the draft. We do have Doyle back up. As I talked about, we wanted to get him back into the lineup for a lot of reasons, particularly defensive reasons, as soon as possible. So he only played one rehab game for us in AAA Albuquerque. And I just thought this was kind of interesting. He went 1 for 4 in that one game in AAA in the PCL, which certainly isn't great, but 1 for 4 is probably the average day that a player has on the baseball diamond, all things considered. And the PCL is such an offensive minded league that a 1 for 4 day in the PCL, granted the one hit was a single, so that doesn't help much in terms of his slugging percentage, but 21 OPS plus and a 9 WRC plus for a 1 per 4 day seemed a little bit low to me, but maybe my mathematical skills are just not what they used to be. Looks like we also have lost another point to fan interest, which isn't great, although attendance has ticked up a little bit over these last few games, which is one positive thing. Before we move on to spend more time thinking about the start of the draft, I had promised that we were going to dig into some of the better prospects in our organization, and we will do that right now. Mixed results across our minor league system. The most disappointing thing, and this isn't great for development, is that our rookie league ACL team is absolutely awful. That quirky draft last year that was filled with the college players due to COVID did not help us much. We wanted to have a lot of those college players in A-ball last year to get them some playing time, and then the ones who we picked in the later rounds just aren't really that good players, and that team has been performing poorly, which is not good for the development and the attitudes of some of the prized prospects in our organization. Hopefully, with that season coming to an end very shortly as we get closer to the draft, we'll be moving some of those players to A-ball. And we've also this year started doing a interesting suggestion from Patrick DeBonis, who had suggested that with the new schedules where the ACL or FCL team's season is ending right as the draft comes, what he'll do to get players a little bit of extra playing time is some of the DSL players in his organization, he will play with the ACL teams or the FCL teams since that season gets off to an early start, and then move them back to the DSL team once that season ends so they can get more significant playing time than they would otherwise. Did that with a few DSL guys at the start of this year. Obviously, they haven't helped that ACL team become all that productive, but they will at least get a little bit of extra playing time by moving them to the DSL over the next week or so when the other rookie team season ends. Top prospect in our organization is Francisco Santos, number 12 prospect in baseball. He was our IAFA signing in 2026. We promoted him to the DSL this year, and he is 3 for his first 14, does have a double, but batting just .214 with a 68 WRC plus in his introduction to professional baseball. Unfortunately for him, he suffered a torn hammy after just 4 games. He missed close to a month with that, and he just came back yesterday to play his 5th game. So hopefully we'll get to see a bit more of him over the last month or so of the DSL season. Charlie Condon, ranked as the number 26 prospect in baseball. The 24-year-old still has a fair amount of untapped potential. The trick is going to be turning that untapped potential to tapped potential, which we haven't been too good at thus far. He does have 14 home runs in 236 AAA at-bats this year, but the batting average is only 216. He's struck out more than a third of his at-bats and only has a 75 WRC plus, so he has been a below replacement level player in the PCL. Gonna just keep putting him out there every day and hoping that with good coaching, good investment in player development, that he ultimately starts to tap some of the untapped potential we think he has here. Even if he's struggling at 24 years old, I anticipate we'll probably bring him up in September. And I guess where we are in the potential playoff race will impact this. But if we bring him up in September, I'd love to ensure that he's in the lineup every day and getting playing time. But if we're in a real tight battle for a playoff spot, maybe we won't be able to do that. But it's getting to sink or swim time with Mr. Condon. And although he's been pretty rough in 84 games in AAA over the last couple of years, at 24 years old, at some point we've just got to find out whether the guy is really going to be a major leaguer or not. Kevin Roberts Jr., who was our first-round pick last year, 5th overall, the number 50 prospect in baseball, off to a respectable start as an 18-year-old in rookie ball this year, hitting .259 with 11 homers and 27 ribbies and 139 at-bats. Been a slightly above average offensive player. Unfortunately, he's angry about that awful team record, and it seems like there's also some team chemistry issues there, which is interesting since one thing that I have been able to do in the draft over the past few years is get a lot of good personality guys there, but I think it's probably a situation where the team is just so horrible that there's a lot of anger on that squad, which is not optimal. Another guy on that team, 6th round pick from 2025, Isaiah Shater, 21-year-old pitcher, 1-4 with a 3.61 earned run average. Given his age, he'll likely be promoted to A-ball in the next week or so after the rookie season comes to an end. Cole Klecker, the 148th ranked prospect in baseball, an 11th round pick from the 2025 draft. 1-6 record with a 3.82 ERA and high A ball for us. Almost a 2 WAR for Mr. Klecker. Doesn't look like he's quite ready for the Eastern League, but doesn't seem like he'd embarrass himself at that level either. So tend to think we will probably promote him over the next month and a half to the Eastern League to give him a little more competition since he is 22 years old. Jack Bauer, another guy angry with the awful team record we have in rookie ball this year, and also angry with his performance. 1-5 record with an ERA of close to 11. Bauer was our 2nd round pick in 2025, and certainly initial performance on the field in rookie ball, particularly now that he's 20 years old, indicates that he may be a massive whiff for us. The control has been a huge issue, 38 walks in just 32 innings this year. And he's also given up 8 home runs. Given his age, we may promote him to A-ball this year just to try to test him and get him a different change of scenery. Clearly, things are not working out well for him in rookie ball. The issue is he doesn't look quite ready for A-ball, and his performance in rookie ball would suggest that he's not. But with an ERA of close to 10 over 2 years in rookie ball, might just be something where we just need to get the guy a total change of scenery. Zane Petty, 2nd round pick of ours last year, unfortunately tore his rotator cuff after just 6 starts this year. He was 2-2 with a 2.12 ERA and high A ball. 4-month recovery time, so he should be ready for spring training next year. I think that we'll likely, given that he'll be 24 years old by then, start him in Double A. We're certainly hoping that we'd have the Texas Tech product in Double A already this year, but the injury that he suffered almost 2 months ago put an end to his season and his development not going the way that we would hope. Our final top 200 prospect, Wilmis Paulino, 0-2 record with a 4.41 ERA in his introduction to A-ball this year. Don't really view him as a top-end prospect. The control is a potential issue, and he barely hits 90 on the radar gun. I think it's just a testament to how weak the minor leagues across all of baseball are right now that he's viewed as a top 200 prospect. We'll also check in on Jamie Arnold, who was our the fourth overall pick, our first round pick in the 2025 draft. He is having a rough go of it in AAA, but again, that is an area where you got to be careful to focus on the statistics too much. The 1-6 record, certainly bad. The 6.10 ERA, certainly bad. 11 home runs allowed in 59 innings, definitely not good. But his ERA plus and his FIP minus are close to league average levels. He has been above replacement level. His Sierra is just under 4. Still think and hope that he can be a useful back end of the rotation pitcher for us. Obviously, we're hoping for more when we picked him 4th overall. But although he's had 2 successful trips to the development lab, overall the development hasn't gone well. Seems like his low work ethic is keeping his development from going as quickly as we'd hope. Even though he has not been good for us this year, I think he's in a similar situation in terms of his development to Charlie Condon, in that regardless of what he does in AAA over the next 2 months, probably going to be a September call-up for us, and we're going to start seeing if these guys can sink or swim for us at the major league level. And it hasn't been a good week for us since we last checked in. We lost 2 out of 3 at home against the Cubs, have split the first 2 games against Texas, so a 2-3 record, and we are now 4-5 in this month of July. So our streak of having a winning record every month this season so far could certainly be in jeopardy, but obviously a lot of baseball to still play in July before we get too melodramatic about things. As we sit here on July 11th, getting ready for the draft, we still have a 2.5 game lead in the division over the Padres. We're 3 up on the Dodgers. Given that the Mets have been struggling with a 2-8 record over their last 10, we actually would have a first-round bye in the National League at this point if the season were to end. Us and the Cardinals would be the 2 teams with first-round byes. Tovar continues to lead the league in ribbies. Simpson continues to lead the league in steals. Austin Wells had that hitting streak of 16 that's still one of the 3 best in the National League this year. And Jesus Luzardo, 2nd in the National League in wins and 2nd in the National League in strikeouts, behind a member of the Pirates, Jared Jones, with the wins, and Paul Skeens with the strikeouts. And we'll finish up the episode by turning our attention to the first-year player draft. Does look like a somewhat deeper pool this year than we've seen in some of the previous seasons. So my hope is that there will be some interesting options for us. As we just talked about, we haven't necessarily done a great job so far when we had higher picks in the draft, 4th in 2025 and 5th last year. This year, we won't be picking until 24th by virtue of having made the playoffs last year. But hopefully we'll be able to bring a player on board who ends up being impactful, and if it's someone who can help us sooner rather than later, that would help as well. We will get the draft underway. The Pittsburgh Pirates are going to be picking 1st overall, and we'll just auto draft right up to our Rockies to see who's on the board and take a look at those players in a little bit more depth before we finish this episode. So you can see 23 players are now off the boards. No players with 80 potential still around, but there are some pretty high ceiling guys that are still on the board for us to consider. Our scouts' top 4 recommendations are left fielder Ryan Westcott. Like the high adaptability and work ethic, like the low financial ambition. Looks like the corner outfield type that we have been bemoaning our lack of success with at the major league level thus far this season. It's 6 foot tall. He'd be marginal at a first baseman with those ratings, but just about anybody can play first base. Not a lot of speed, not a good bunter, but the bat is potentially interesting, and you would think with high adaptability, high work ethic, and the big investment that we tend to make in coaching and player development that we could get him a long way towards reaching his full potential. I think that his contact can be outstanding, his gap power and his eye both well above average, although the gap power will be wasted a little bit with his below average speed. And decent home run power if he reaches his full potential. So certainly an interesting bat for the 24th overall selection in Mr. Westcott, but he is really a bat, more of a DH left field type than anything else. Another high schooler, starting pitcher Robert Jean, high financial ambition, low leadership, an 18-year-old who's fragile physically. Love that we think he can throw triple digits. Love that we think he's got really good stamina. Love a potential 6-pitch arsenal of outstanding pitches. The stuff could be off the charts. The movement looks really good, but that lack of control is just a massive red flag for me. We've talked about some of the guys in our organization who are having trouble with their control. Certainly don't want to be letting guys get free passes on a regular basis in cores. And to me, as much as there are a ton of things that I love about Pimba Gene, I think that lack of control just scares the heck out of me. Looking at the OSA, they think he's even worse in terms of control than the only average scouting accuracy that our scout has been able to provide. 17-year-old reliever Adonis Valère Anthony has high work ethic, durable, modest stamina, only a 2-pitch arsenal. I think he can be a guy, again, with explosive stuff and potentially great movement on his pitches, but concerned about the lack of control. Don't think we're going to go with a high school reliever with the 24th overall pick. And the 4th guy that is at the top of the recommendations from our scout is a high school outfielder, Ted Miller. Another guy who looks like a corner outfield type, like the durability, good leadership, and I think he can be above average in everything offensively with potentially outstanding gap power. So a couple interesting outfield prospects that we've talked about already. Take a look at some guys who, according to the mock draft, should already be off the board. Javier Figueroa, potential 2-way guy, corner outfielder with excellent contact and gap power. The home run power and the eye are troubling, and although he's listed as a 2-way player, we think the stuff, the control are really kind of a train wreck. Love the personality, but don't know that Figueroa is a direction that will ultimately end up going. Third baseman Josh Loy was projected to go already. Switch hitting third baseman, has a really nice arm, high adaptability, a bat that looks like it could be a pretty good major league bat. Only average home run power, but we think the contact and the eye could both be above average. As a switch hitting third baseman, he could definitely turn into a useful major leaguer if he reaches his full potential. Few more guys. College player center fielder Trent Clausen out of Oregon State. The gap power and the speed combination is very interesting, particularly for a field like Coors. Pretty solid outfield range. Certainly could play left field out in Coors, and the hope would be maybe you could ultimately improve that defensive skills a bit in the development lab. Think he can be above average at everything offensively. Still has some work to do with the home run power. But if we're looking for someone who could make a more near-term impact, near-term still perhaps being a year and a half, 2.5 years away at the major league level, I think Trent Clausen is an interesting player to consider as well. Right fielder Steve Borkowski, good contact, kind of average at everything else. Corner outfielder who's, again, listed as a two-way player, some mixed personality traits. Probably not the direction I'll go. Another college player, second baseman Mike Brown out of Wichita State. Looks okay defensively, some good personality traits. The bat, if he reaches his full potential, is a useful major league bat, but not great. I think among the two the two college hitters that we've looked at recently, I prefer Clausen over Mike Brown. Last guy who was supposed to be drafted before us, right fielder Ted Miller. Talked about him already. He's a guy that our scout likes as well. And then the guy that we are projected to pick here, second baseman Alan Whitley, high schooler. Don't love his early indications as far as his defensive skill. Not a ton of speed. Is going to draw a lot of walks. Looks like he could be above average in everything offensively with an outstanding eye if he completely developed. Don't know that we take him at a 24th overall pick, but I certainly wouldn't completely rule him out based on our first glance either. And before we finish things up, we'll take a more holistic view at just the top prospects among both batters and pitchers in the draft, according to our scout, looking at the batters all at once first, and then the hitters. Ryan Westcott, the highest ceiling prospect, like the personality traits. Think he is certainly on the very short list of players we're going to strongly consider. And I'd say the same thing about Trent Clausen. He is further along as a college player, and think that he's got some interesting traits as a potential guy in Coors for us. Javier Figueroa, we talked about him already. Don't think this is a direction that I would go. Definitely like Westcott and Clausen better. Bobby Green, second baseman. Interesting bat for a middle infielder. Really like the speed, decent base running instincts, mixed personality traits, but he does have the high work ethic, which could help his development. Don't love the glove yet. Looking at him, and he looks like a corner outfielder if we turned him into an outfielder, but certainly enough there with the bat that I can't completely rule out Bobby Green, although my first instinct is that I like Westcott and Clausen better. Shortstop Brian Jones out of Vanderbilt. If he reaches his full potential, it's a very nicely balanced bat that's above average at everything. Decent infield range. He's definitely a usable second baseman, but not a great second baseman. Could say the same thing about him as a left fielder or right fielder. Not a ton of speed. I don't hate him. If he was still around in the second round, I think he'd be a real strong candidate. But if we're going to go with a college player, I think I prefer Clausen. Just think that the ultimate ceiling for Clausen is a little bit higher if he reaches his full potential, even though their overall numbers are exactly the same. Talked about right fielder Ted Miller. Definitely like him as well. My inclination is if we go with a high school corner outfielder, I probably go with Westcott over Miller. Right fielder Chris Piver, really good contact, really good gap power, below average home run power and eye. Looks like a corner outfielder, decent speed. Like him, but I think some of the other guys that we've talked about I like more. And then Darius Sewell, first baseman, haven't talked about him yet. 6'1" with poor ratings. He is definitely a first baseman or a really mediocre to poor defensive left fielder. Like the work ethic, not a lot of speed. He is all about the ability to draw walks and the ability to hit the ball over the fence. He's likely to strike out a decent amount. I tend to think it's possible some of these guys will still be around in the second round where they'd be very interesting value. My initial view of the position players is that I probably like Westcott, Clausen, and Bobby Green the best. But again, I've spent these last 10 minutes with you talking about this. I have looked at some of these players offline as we've been scouting them, but going to spend a lot more time thinking about it over the rest of the day on Sunday after I post this episode, and also hopefully we'll have some feedback from the worldwide scouting department to help inform whatever decision I end up making. And that decision does not necessarily have to involve a position player, of course. Take a look at some of the top pitching prospects. Already talked about Robert Jean. I think between the fragility, the control, there's just no way that I take this guy with a first-round pick. Probably won't be around for us in the second, and don't even know if I'd take him there just because I think the control is ultimately going to be a career-limiting issue with him. But that stuff and movement are definitely attractive. Adonis Valère, as we talked about, similar, although the control with him certainly seems like it could be workable. Don't see myself taking a 17-year-old high school reliever with a first-round pick, but if Anthony Valère is still around later, certainly might think about him. Adam McShay, a reliever out of Memphis, like some personality traits, really like the ground ball tendencies, like that we think he can throw triple digits. Outstanding fastball and a splitter that's not far off major league quality. This looks like a guy who could be helping in the major league level in the not too distant future. Don't love the lack of control, but think it can certainly get up to a passable major league level, although, as I've talked about, would love to have better control among our major league pitchers, since giving up walks has been the one thing that we can kind of get on them for statistically this year. A very bold and ambitious nickname, Adam McShay, the new Bambino. Don't see us taking him with a first-round pick. I'd be surprised if he lingers to the second round, but could be interesting then. Another reliever prospect, Matt Sanderson, high school right fielder, like the high adaptability and work ethic. Think he can throw close to 100 miles an hour. Potential three-pitch arsenal, so you could argue if those three pitches all development and you can get him in the lab working on his stamina, maybe you can turn him into a cheap starter. I think his stuff, his movement and control could all be well above average. I don't think, given the amount of work and luck that it will take to turn him into a starter, that he's a guy that we would take in the first round. But similar to McShay and Valère and Jean, if any of these guys are in the second round, might be someone to consider. There are a couple of starting pitching prospects that I also want to talk about whose ceilings aren't viewed as quite as high by our scout. Travis Grubb, potential three-pitch arsenal, but he's going to be reliant on that changeup developing. Really good stamina. Think his stuff and his movement could both be above average, only average-ish as far as the ceiling for his control. Alan Hammond, 18-year-old who's committed to Notre Dame. Potential 4-pitch arsenal, but he's got a lot of work to do on everything in that slider. Looks like it's going to be a marginal pitch. Think his stuff could be above average. Think the movement could be excellent and could do an outstanding job keeping the ball in the park. As with most of these young guys, though, the control is the potential concern. The final guy to look at who is a potential starter is Rod Perez. Potential 3-pitch arsenal. Don't love that he's fragile already at 17 years old. Decent stamina, good at holding on runners. Better control than most of the pitchers we've looked at, which I like to see. Also, potentially really good movement. The stuff with him is going to be the question. But if he reaches his full potential, certainly could be an interesting major leaguer. Would love to know what the Worldwide Scouting Department thinks about the pitchers as well. I'll show you the other 65 potential guys, although these guys are all certainly or most likely relievers, so I don't see myself taking them in the first round. Joel Heflin, 2-pitch guy with below average stamina, looks like a potentially interesting major league reliever. Throws in the triple digits if he reaches his full potential. But he's 21 years old, fragile, and hasn't faced the highest level of college competition at Westchester University. David Pacheco, 19-year-old high schooler, a lot of red flags with the personality. Does have the stamina so that if he got lucky and you added another third pitch, could potentially turn him into a starter, but not a guy that I'd be eager to take in the first round. 2 final guys, Chris Predmore out of South Carolina. Looks like a guy who could be a useful, he's out of Sussex County Community College right now, committed to South Carolina. But the 21-year-old looks like he could be a pretty useful right-handed bullpen arm in the not-too-distant future. Just don't know that I'm going to take that with the 24th pick in the draft unless the guy looked like a superstar. And then Matt Stone, I believe that's the name of one of the guys on South Park, but I could be wrong. But if he is the South Park guy, if that really is Matt Stone, we'll have to change that nickname if we bring him on board. Don't love the low adaptability and work ethic, but fastball and curveball, not far off major league quality, even though he's only an 18-year-old. So interesting prospect. I tend to feel that any of the pitchers would be a bit of a reach for me right now, but there are some guys that I would be more intrigued by in the second round. So my initial inclination, and again, this is relatively ill-informed right now. Hopefully it will be somewhat better informed after I spend some more time digging more deeply into these players, the options out there, where guys are set to go in the mock draft, and then also look at some options whose ceilings might not be as high according to our scout, but might be interesting to me nonetheless. But to me, the initial inclination is it's a 3-horse race between Bobby Green. I think that bat could be very interesting for an infielder. Like the speed. Don't love that the personality is mixed, and don't love that he's not as good defensively as I'd hope. I said 3-horse race. I'll also show Brian Jones because he's just not far off being able to help in the majors, but ultimately don't think that the top end of Brian Jones is as interesting as some of these other players. I know that the home run and eye combination of Darius Sewell will be attractive to some members of the Worldwide Scouting Department, so I'll also look at him. Given the just total lack of speed, given the total lack of defensive ability, and given the likelihood that he's going to strike out a lot more than I'd like, I don't think I take him 24th overall, but I'd say Sewell, Green, and Jones are kind of my 3 initial fallback guys. And as I think about this more on the fly, to me right now, it's a 2-horse race. Again, initial view, but Ryan Westcott, if he fully develops, is to me the most interesting bat in the draft. And as I talked about, with the high adaptability, high work ethic, think that although every high school player is a total roll of the dice, that with the investment we make in scouting, player development, and coaching, and his personality traits, we've got a good chance with him, or as good a chance as possible to come close to maximizing his potential. So he's real interesting from that perspective. Trent Clausen is another guy who the bat is really interesting. At the highest levels, I don't think it's quite as good a bat as Westcott's, with that potentially outstanding contact and gap power and eye that are both well above average. But again, with the Westcott, that gap power is, I don't want to say nerfed, but the lack of speed that he has makes it a little harder for him to take advantage of it. Clausen, the gap power even better, but the contact and eye, his ceiling is lower. Home run power, the ceiling is kind of the same. But Clausen, much closer to being able to help us at the major league level, better defensive with that really good range, and really like that speed, particularly combined with the gap power in Coors Field. I think if I had to make the decision right this second, I would go with Clausen over the high schooler Westcott. We've talked a lot about some of the problems we're having in the corner outfield, both offensively and then with the exception of the recent addition of Simpson, most of the corner outfielders we've had have defensive limitations as well. Clausen's not a perfect defensive outfielder, but that 65 range is certainly more than acceptable to me, even in Coors. Maybe I hope that the error rating in the arm can be improved a little bit with some luck. But the speed will play very well in conjunction with the gap power. And the bat is one that overall, if he comes close to reaching his full potential, would certainly be an above average major league bat. I don't think he's a superstar, but if he reaches his full potential in everything, and you've got 60 contact with borderline off the charts gap power and really good speed with plus home run power and plus eye, he is a very, very good and useful major league player for us. So would love to hear what the worldwide scouting department thinks, but my I guess probably 15 or 20 minute review at this time says that Clausen is on the top of my board here around 9:30 on Sunday morning. Who knows who will be on the top of my board later on this evening. But we will find out the answer to that and a lot of other questions in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.